When we think of true crime, our minds often go to the notorious names, the headline-making serial killers, the infamous cult leaders, the courtroom dramas that grip the nation. But for every high-profile case that dominates the news cycle, there are dozens of others that fall through the cracks. Victims whose names don't trend. Crimes that go unsolved, unpunished, or simply unnoticed. The truth is, some of the most disturbing, heartbreaking, and baffling crimes happen quietly, far from flashing cameras and national attention. This is a journey into that darker corner. The cases you're about to hear aren't famous. They didn't make it to prime time, but they are no less real, no less brutal, and the families left behind are no less shattered. Welcome back to The Sky Opened, a true crime YouTube channel where we dive deep in lesser-known cases. If you like what you see here, please subscribe, leave a like, and comment below what you thought about the case. We begin with the story of a woman struck down by a stranger in Alabama and left to burn in silence. We follow a family's relentless fight for justice in New Orleans after their loved one is gunned down by a neighbor with a history of violence. We uncover a gruesome act of betrayal in California, a mutilation murder in the UK that stunned a nation, and the ongoing mystery of a young woman who vanished without a trace. These aren't just stories, they're real lives, real pain, and real questions still waiting for answers. This is Justice in the Shadows, 5 recent true crime cases you've probably never heard of, until now. It was a quiet May afternoon in Florence, Alabama, when 38-year-old Autumn Strickland vanished without a trace. She wasn't the kind of person to go off the grid. Her life was structured, predictable, safe. So when she didn't return home or respond to calls, her family grew immediately concerned. It wasn't like Autumn to go silent. They contacted authorities, who began a routine missing persons inquiry. But that routine didn't last long. Within 48 hours, investigators found themselves staring into a burn barrel behind the home of a man named Logan Rogers. Inside were human remains, charred, unrecognizable at first, but later confirmed to be Autumn. Logan Rogers was not a friend, not a co-worker, not an ex, not even an acquaintance. That was the part that stunned police and the public alike. In a town where everyone seems to know everyone, the victim and the accused were complete strangers. Surveillance footage revealed a disturbing sequence. Autumn walking down the street, a vehicle speeding up behind her, her own car, and striking her. The driver then loaded her into the vehicle and drove off. It was Logan Rogers behind the wheel. Investigators believe he murdered her and attempted to dispose of her body in a fire behind his home. It was brazen, it was brutal, and it was entirely senseless. No motive was ever clearly established. Rogers offered no explanation, no remorse, no insight into what led him to commit such a horrific act. In court, he remained quiet, even as the community and Autumn's family demanded answers. Prosecutors charged him with capital murder, citing the evidence and the grotesque nature of the crime. For Florence, a place rarely touched by this level of violence, the murder was a jolt to the system. The randomness made it feel even more terrifying. There was no love triangle, no robbery gone wrong, no mental breakdown that anyone could identify. Just a predator hiding in plain sight and a woman who became a victim simply by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. In a New Orleans neighborhood still trying to rebuild its sense of peace, Richie Smith was a fixture. He was known for his kindness, his sense of humor, and his loyalty to family. So when news broke that Richie had been shot and killed by his neighbor, Leroy Stelly Jr., many couldn't believe it. Stelly claimed it was self-defense, invoking Louisiana's Stand Your Ground law. But Richie's family knew something wasn't right. The man who killed him had a violent criminal record, including prior arrests for impersonating police and physically assaulting others. Why was he allowed to own a gun? Why was there no trial? Police accepted Stelly's story without significant scrutiny. They ruled the shooting justifiable and closed the case. But Richie's family refused to accept that answer. They launched their own investigation, digging through court documents, compiling inconsistencies, and collecting over 80 pages of evidence that painted a very different picture. They argued that Richie had been lured, ambushed, or provoked. Their findings raised troubling questions about the use of stand-your-ground laws, especially in cases involving individuals with histories of violence. The family's fight for justice turned into a movement. They called for a grand jury review, demanded policy changes, and went public with Richie's story. For them, it wasn't just about one man's death. It was about a system that too often favours the shooter over the victim, particularly when the shooter fits a certain profile. Despite mounting public pressure, the case remained closed. But Richie's family pressed on. Their refusal to back down transformed the case from a neighbourhood tragedy into a broader conversation about justice, accountability, and whose lives the legal system is designed to protect. Elia Lopez Arroyo had just welcomed her grandson home. Luis Gustavo Arroyo Lopez had been recently released from prison, and despite his troubled past, Elia believed in second chances. She offered him a place to stay, a warm meal, and a chance to rebuild. It was an act of compassion that would cost her everything. Within days of Luis returning home, Elia's friends began to worry. She wasn't answering calls, wasn't attending church, wasn't going about her daily routine. Police conducted a welfare check. What they found inside her home was pure horror. Elia's body, mutilated and decapitated. The crime scene was as brutal as any investigators had seen. Blood soaked the walls. Evidence suggested rage, but also control. Luis fled the scene but was apprehended within 48 hours. He confessed to the killing, though he offered no coherent motive. There was no robbery, no history of abuse between them, no indication of a fight, just silence and death. The case left the community in mourning and disbelief. Elia was a beloved figure, known for her patience and kindness. That she was killed by her own grandson made the loss all the more unbearable. The murder raised broader questions about post-incarceration support and mental health treatment. Was Luis a ticking time bomb, released without adequate supervision or resources? Did the system fail both him and Elia? The trial moved forward quickly, with prosecutors pursuing a life sentence. But for those who loved Elia, the emotional wounds may never fully heal. Her story became a cautionary tale about trust, trauma, and the unpredictable aftermath of incarceration. Few crimes have matched the bizarre spectacle of the July 2024 discovery on the Clifton suspension bridge in Bristol, England. In the early morning hours, 2 suitcases were spotted near the bridge's pedestrian walkway. At first, authorities assumed they were abandoned luggage. But when opened, a gruesome discovery came to light. Human remains, dismembered and packed meticulously. It was a public display of violence, left in one of the most iconic and scenic spots in the UK. The symbolism of the location, once a symbol of beauty and innovation, was warped into something macabre. The case gripped the city. Police launched an international manhunt that ended just days later with the arrest of 24-year-old Justin Andres Mosquera at a train station. The suspect remained eerily calm during questioning, reportedly offering minimal resistance and few answers. Details slowly emerged. The victim, a woman Mosquera had allegedly been in conflict with, had been killed days before. The body had been cut apart, cleaned, and distributed across luggage. The murder was likely planned, not a crime of passion. The bridge was chosen intentionally, as a statement, as a disposal site, or both. Public reaction was a mix of fear and fascination. Why the bridge? Why the suitcase? Why the theatricality? These were questions that dominated headlines. Experts weighed in. Perhaps it was a power play, perhaps a way to instill fear. As the trial approached, the court ordered psychiatric evaluations. Some suspected delusions, others believed it was a calculated act of cold-blooded murder. Either way, the Clifton case shattered the sense of safety the community once had. The bridge, once a place of romance and photographs, now bore the weight of memory, one suitcase at a time. Brittany Robinson's story is a haunting reminder that sometimes justice takes too long, and sometimes it may never fully come. Brittany was a young woman with her whole life ahead of her when she vanished under suspicious circumstances in Alabama. No public conflict, no known enemies. But in the days after she was reported missing, authorities began to circle in on a man named Jason Hooper. Hooper had a long rap sheet: burglary, assault, intimidation. He had recently been released from an Oklahoma jail and had reportedly been in contact with Brittany in the days leading up to her disappearance. Despite an intense search, Brittany's body has never been found. That hasn't stopped prosecutors from pressing charges. They believe Hooper murdered her, and they have the digital footprints, cell tower data, and witness statements to back up their claim. The problem? No body means a much harder legal battle. Still, Brittany's family refused to let the lack of physical evidence silence their pursuit of truth. They pushed investigators, shared Brittany's story online, and helped keep the spotlight on the case long after it faded from the nightly news. In 2024, Hooper was arrested and indicted for Brittany's murder. He's currently awaiting extradition back to Alabama to stand trial. For Brittany's family, the trial is both a step toward justice and a painful reliving of trauma. Each court date, each press conference, each legal formality is a reminder that their daughter is still gone and that they may never know where she is. Brittany's disappearance speaks to the terrifying reality of modern crime. People can vanish, and unless someone fights to keep their story alive, the world moves on. Her family has made sure that won't happen. They want justice, they want closure, and they want Brittany to be more than just a missing persons file. She deserves to be found, to be remembered, and above all, to be honoured with the truth. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe so you're always dialed in to true crime cases. Also leave a comment down below what you thought about the case.